Canada with stronger take-home pay, safer streets, secure borders, and a self-reliant nation. A country where people feel safe and secure, where when they get home and turn that key to get into their home, they're finally in their wonderful refuge, where they have no more concerns, where they're at peace, where they know their kids can go in the yard or in the front driveway and play street hockey, where they know that the local parks are safe and free from needles and danger. And they know that when they come out in the morning, the car will still be there. The glass will not be broken, that no one will have invaded their home and threatened their lives. But after 6 years of liberal crime laws, that is the exact opposite of the experience we are living with today. Violent crime is raging out of control. We saw the most recent tragic example of that just in the last few days in St. Jerome in Quebec, where a man who had 30 prior convictions and had violated his bail provisions 16 times is now standing accused of murdering his girlfriend. A man who should have been behind bars, and if he had been, this tragedy would not have occurred. Of course, he wasn't, because under Liberal law C-75, judges are required to release the accused at the, quote, earliest opportunity under the, quote, least restrictive conditions. We see the case of Shakir Badi, an Ajax man arrested in connection with a violent home invasion and the kidnapping of a 54-year-old man that left a 55-year-old man seriously injured. Mr. Badi was released on bail despite having been charged with attempted murder, conspiracy of committing murder, robbery with a firearm, disguised with an intent, possession of a restricted firearm, knowingly not holding a license, possession of prohibited devices, and possession of property obtained of crime over a $5,000 limit. At the time of his arrest, Masih Mohammed was himself out on bail for unrelated offenses. This was one of just a series of violent crimes perpetrated against innocent Canadians. After being convicted of assault and uttering threats, James Plover was released while awaiting sentence. 3 hours later, he brutally murdered Bailey McCourt, his ex-wife, in a parking lot just 4 kilometers away from the courthouse. If he had been kept behind bars where he belonged, that beautiful woman would be alive today. But thanks to Liberal bail laws that required him be released, she is not with us anymore. Because of Liberal bail, extortion is up 330%. Because of Liberal bail, sexual assaults are up 76%. Because of Liberal bail, violent crime is up 55%. And because of Liberal bail, homicides are up 29%. Because of Liberal bail, Canadians are no longer safe. So Mark Carney, knowing that Canadians were terrified and frustrated by the crime wave his party had caused, pulled a bait and switch in the last election. He promised Liberals would flip-flop on bail, that if re-elected, after 10 years, they would have learned their lesson. And he said, we will act decisively to strengthen the criminal code. Decisively. Here we are, 6 months later, and where is this decisive action to reverse Liberal bail? He said, we will move aggressively to protect victims by making bail laws stricter for violent and organized crime. Well, tell that to the victims of crime. Tell that to the family of Bailey McCourt, who lost her life to someone out on Liberal bail. Then he appointed the single worst Trudeau minister, Sean Fraser, the guy who destroyed our immigration system, the guy who destroyed our housing market, and now his reward is he gets to be the justice minister responsible for the crime laws. It is no wonder that crime and chaos are out of control when Mr. Fraser and then, of course, Gary Ananasangri, a man who has been caught on tape admitting that he's implementing gun laws that won't work, that make no sense, and that will ultimately cost $750 million, all to win votes rather than save lives. These are the Liberals that Mark Carney puts in charge. You know, we're not asking for Mark Carney to be a hero. You know what we're asking him to do? Get out of the way. Get out of the way, Mark Carney. You are the only thing stopping Canadians from having strong bail laws that will keep them safe. And the media has wrongly said that what we need is bail reform. We have bail reform. It's called C-75. We have bail reform. Bail reform by Liberals that allows repeat offenders out of jail again and again and again. What we need to do is scrap Liberal bail. Scrap Liberal bail to keep violent offenders behind bars. Scrap Liberal bail to lock up sex offenders. Scrap Liberal bail to bring safety and tranquility to our streets. And that is why the great RPAN Canada has introduced Bill C-242, the Jail Not Bail Act, to end the Liberal crime wave, undoing all the broken Liberal laws and getting the criminals behind bars. This policy has been endorsed by the Toronto Police Association, various community advocates, Debbie Henderson, the spokesman for the Bailey family, for Bailey McCourt's family. Today, Conservatives will introduce a motion in the House of Commons that would push the rapid adoption of RPAN Canada's Jail Not Bail Act. Again, we don't need the Liberals to do anything. We just need them to get out of the way. If they will abstain on this vote and agree to let this bill pass, we can scrap Liberal bail. They've had 6 months since the last election. Mark Carney promised he would reverse Liberal bail laws, and here we are a half a year later, and those laws are still in place, and they haven't even introduced a bill. What is taking so long? Seriously. While people are dying on our streets, where our citizens are being massacred, while women are being killed by abusive ex-husbands, Mark Carney has spent 6 months spinning in circles, leaving Liberal laws in place. And he is personally responsible for the violence on our streets because it is him that is standing in the way of us fixing the problem. So we ask Liberals to get out of the way and let us scrap Liberal bail. Let us also scrap the house arrest law, CC5. We have a bill from Pierre Paulus, our member from Quebec City, to get criminals in jail, not in house arrest. The Stand on Guard law will be coming soon from Conservatives that will allow people to protect themselves in their own homes against violent intruders. The Protection Against Extortion Act, another Conservative bill that Liberals are blocking, which would lock up the extortionists that are terrorizing Surrey, Brampton, and Northeast Calgary, and the Three Strikes You're Out law that would guarantee that anyone convicted of 3 violent offenses will have a mandatory 10 years in prison with no parole, probation, bail, or house arrest. These are real common sense actions that Conservatives are proposing and Liberals are blocking. Again, our message is we ask only one thing of Mark Carney and the Liberals. Please get out of the way. We are ready to protect Canadians and restore safe streets for our country. Let's again make this a country where everybody feels safe, where when your head hits the pillow at night, you know that you'll wake up safely with your car in your driveway, that your kids will be safe at school, in their parks, and outside, where women no longer have to fear violent ex-husbands and other abusers, where all Canadians feel safe in this wonderful country under our proud flag. Thank you very much.
We will now open the floor to questions. Please identify yourself and your outlet.
Ryan Johnson, Toronto Star. Mr. Poilievre, would you support the Liberals' decision to end door-to-door delivery, bring in community mailboxes, and would you support back-to-work legislation?
What a mess. Unbelievable. 10 years later, after Conservatives had made Canada Post viable, 10 years later, Liberals have lost 5 billion Canadian tax dollars mismanaging Canada Post. Now the workers at Canada Post are suffering. Small businesses face interruptions to their delivery. Rural communities are being deprived of their essential services. Everyone is losing because of Liberal incompetence. And you know, it's just a reminder, when Liberals say there's no cost to their deficits, we now see that there are very real costs. People are paying the price because the longer you pile up Liberal debt, the bigger the price will be in service cuts and higher taxes later on. And that's why what we need is a Conservative government that will responsibly manage our tax dollars, bring down these inflationary deficits, get more value for the money we spend, and make this a country where people get good service at a good price. Thank you.
Next question.
vous entendre sur l'agence d'approvisionnement militaire que le gouvernement lance aujourd'hui. Est-ce que c'est correct de retirer l'approvisionnement des mains des forces armées canadiennes? Est-ce que ce sera plus efficace selon vous?
Mais les libéraux ont tellement mal géré l'achat des équipements et des produits pour les forces armées. Je fais aucune confiance au gouvernement libéral, surtout M. Carney, de bien gérer ça. Évidemment, les forces armées souffrent après 10 ans de malgestion des libéraux. Et je note encore, c'est un autre exemple où après 6 mois au pouvoir, la seule chose que M. Carney peut annoncer, c'est un autre bureau. Nos secteurs de ressources naturelles perdent des emplois. M. Carney crée un autre bureau. On a une crise de logement. Après que les libéraux ont doublé le coût du logement, c'est quoi sa solution? Un autre bureau. Les forces armées n'ont pas l'équipement nécessaire. M. Carney va établir un autre bureau. Est-ce que c'est ça son plan, que tout le monde va travailler comme bureaucrate dans un autre bureau fédéral? Ou bien est-ce qu'un jour on va avoir des vrais résultats pour livrer pour les soldats et les Canadiens?
Mohammed, National Post.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with your Premier that a new West Coast pipeline is a litmus test for whether Canada still works and whether we can still build things in this country?
Almost. I think it's a litmus test for Mark Carney. There was a lot of grandiose promises by Mr. Carney during the election that he would build, baby, build faster than you'd ever imagined we could build. So when is this building going to happen? Here we are, 6 months after he took office, and the new Liberal government looks an awful lot like the old Liberal government. The last 6 months looks an awful lot like the last 10 years, where they block, baby, block. So there's only one person who will decide if this pipeline gets built, and it's Mark Carney. So I would encourage you all to ignore provincial politicians who have no authority in this matter. Like, the reality is the federal government has the full authority over interprovincial pipelines. So there's one man who stands in the way of this pipeline getting built. It's Mark Carney. If the Liberals want it built, they will immediately repeal the tanker ban so the pipe can fill a ship that goes abroad, the production cap so that our producers can make enough oil to go in the pipe, and C-69 so that the pipe can get rapidly approved. Mark Carney really only has to do one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. I will note there is some good news, followed by bad news. Canadian pipeline companies are building pipelines. That's the good news. Terrible news. They're building them in the United States of America without taxpayer support. Enbridge is building 2 pipelines right now in the U.S. without taxpayer money. TransCanada Pipelines is building $8.5 billion of brand new projects in the United States without taxpayer money. But here in Canada, Mark Carney is in the way. So my message to Mark Carney, get out of the way so that Canadians can get building a pipeline. That's the way we send our resources to 2.5 billion Asian customers, so we're no longer reliant on the Americans for all of our exports.
Jillian Piper with Global News. Mr. Poilievre, do you think Canada should match the new U.S. retaliatory tariffs that came into place yesterday on pharmaceuticals, heavy trucks, and some furniture?
Well, I think Mr. Carney should keep his promise. He promised that he would negotiate a win with the United States by July 21st. Where's the win? Since Mr. Carney took office promising to be a brilliant negotiator, American tariffs on Canada have more than doubled, and they have much broadened. China, smelling weakness, has hit our farmers and fish harvesters with increased tariffs as well. Mark Carney is losing trade wars with Beijing and with Washington, and Canadians are paying the price after 6 months of broken promises. I would call on Mark Carney to immediately eliminate his tariffs on Canadian industry. Get rid of the industrial carbon tax. Get rid of anti-development laws so that we can start producing more here in Canada. Get out of the way and let builders build homes so that they can so that our lumber can go into home building. Those are the best ways that we can stand up for our country, and we're here to propose as well, not just oppose. I'm offering Mr. Carney something very generous. We propose the Canada Sovereignty Act. which will repeal all the anti-development laws and cut taxes. It'll bring home our technology to this country. And I'm offering Mr. Carney that I will hand him that bill and let him introduce it as a government bill. We will put aside all partisanship and let him pass that immediately. Do you think we could do that? Yeah. So we have, look at this kind of, the way we're putting differences aside for the interests of our country. This is the kind of collaboration we need in Canada. Yes, sir. Oui.
Hi, Mr. Polyev. Noah Wachter with CTV News.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the Bloc leader said that as it stands, his party would no longer support the budget. I'm wondering what, if anything, would it take for your party to support the budget?
Well, we'll be laying out a specific list of demands, but first of all, we have some very serious questions. Mark Carney promised he would spend less. His deficit is almost 100% more than the one that Trudeau left behind. He promised that we would have the fastest growing economy in the G7. We have the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. He promised that he would double home building. Home building is down by 13%. He promised affordable food, and now food price inflation is almost twice the Bank of Canada's target and 50% higher in Canada than in the United States, while we expect 4 million visits to the Toronto Food Bank. So we want Mr. Carney to explain why after 6 months after making these grandiose promises, all Canadians have is costly bait and switch.
Dans son discours d'ouverture, M. Poliev, Olivier Boissé de TVA, dans son discours d'ouverture cette semaine, le Premier ministre du Québec, François Legault, a identifié parmi ses priorités de barrer la route aux islamistes radicaux parce qu'ils s'en prennent à nos valeurs. Est-ce qu'il a raison de s'en préoccuper?
Les libéraux ont divisé notre pays entre l'un groupe contre l'autre groupe. Ils ont vu, les politiques libérales ont augmenté les crimes haineux par plus de 100%. Ils ont brisé notre système d'immigration en permettant des criminels d'entrer dans notre pays sans aucune vérification. Maintenant, il y a 600 criminels de l'étranger qui sont libres et perdus dans nos rues à cause des libéraux. Donc, c'est le chaos que les libéraux ont créé. Nous croyons qu'on devrait mettre fin à la criminalité, barrer nos frontières aux criminels de l'étranger et créer un système d'immigration qui met de l'avant les valeurs canadiennes, les valeurs d'égalité, de liberté personnelle et de sécurité dans nos rues, des valeurs qui ont été brisées par les libéraux. Excellent.
Hi, Mr. Polyev. Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. There is an ostrich farm out in BC that's facing a potential cull of its ostriches. Its supporters are looking to see if you support or oppose this. Have you taken any kind of position on this, or are you willing to speak to this matter in the House, as some of your MPs have?
Well, just yesterday I did speak on it, pointing out that this is just another example of total liberal incompetence. They've mismanaged this from the very beginning, and now they've left Canadians confused, farmers baffled by the total incompetence by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Another disastrous liberal mishandling of an issue that has left us with the problem we have today.
Mr. Polyev, good morning. How should the government handle the EV tariff situation with China? How can you restore canola free trade with China? Would you be in favor of removing EV tariffs on China?
No, I would not. And this is another example of Mark Carney's weakness abroad costing Canadians at home. So Beijing hits Canada with higher tariffs on fertilizer, on canola and fish harvesters and numerous other agricultural products. And what does Mark Carney do? He gives them $1 billion taxpayer-backed loan to buy, so that we can buy Chinese-made ships. So he's taking Canadian jobs away from Canadian workers to give them to a country that is hammering our farmers and fish harvesters with tariffs. You know, it's incredible. Everywhere Mark Carney goes, we get hit with higher tariffs. You know, some people think I've criticized him for traveling. It's not his traveling, it's his results. Let's go through the background. He goes to Washington, gets wonderful, gushing media coverage. What's the result? The Americans double tariffs on Canada. He goes to Europe, twice to UK. And what do? Lock in the blockade against Canadian beef production. He meets with the Chinese premier. And what do the Chinese do? They double tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. It's that we would be better off if Mark Carney would hide under a rock than we are with him traveling around the world. Everywhere he goes, we end up with higher tariffs. You know what I mean? Like, if he would lock himself in a room, we would be getting a better result on tariffs than we are right now. It has been a gigantic bait and switch. We were sold about this brilliant negotiator. Where is it? Point to me to a single win anywhere in the world. And by the way, these agreements he gets, they're not agreements. They're declarations that can contain in the very first page that they have no legal binding and that they have no finances involved. So despite these public relations tours that he does around the world at great expense to taxpayers, all he has brought home is heavier tariffs on Canadians and a weaker Canadian economy. We need a new direction for our country, one that puts Canada first, one that will unlock our industry, make us a nation that is strong, self-reliant, and stands on its own 2 feet, that produces its own resources, that rewards hard work with low taxes, fast permits, and the best business environment in the world. That's the vision we have for Canada. Let's put our country first.
Thank you. That concludes today's event.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right on. Thank you.